Why did Anita Baker have beef with Luther Vandross? The conclusion. So let's jump back in. Here's what Paul Grien wrote when Luther and Anita came to Los Angeles at the start of December 1988. Warning to Luther fans, brace yourselves for this one. Anita Baker steals the show from headliner Vandross. There was another robbery in Los Angeles on Thursday night. Anita Baker stole the show from headliner Luther Vandross at the Sports Arena, and she made off with quite a bundle thanks to a marvelously staged performance that clinched her status as one of the most prized vocalists to emerge in the 80s. But Baker had an unlikely accomplice in this heist, Vandross himself, who turned in a flat, poorly paced show that made it easy for Baker to shine. Vandross showed a lot of guts in booking the Red Hot Baker as the opening act on his nationwide tour. Following her on stage would be a tall order for any performer. Vandross has the talent to do it, but Thursday he didn't seem to have the will. It was as if he knew he would be upstage and felt demoralized. Rather than rising to the challenge, he fell further behind. Part of the problem is that Vandross' show was bogged down with ballads. Slow romantic songs are the New York-based singer's specialty, but too many in a row can bring an audience energy level so far down that a performer can't bring it up again. That's exactly what happened to Vandross. After nearly an hour of intense, drawn-out ballads, he announced that it was time to party, but by that point, few were in the mood. Even the sizzling Stop to Love failed to stir the crowd. There was no call for an encore. Vandross should punctuate the program with stylish, up-tempo songs like Give Me the Reason and Bad Boy, which he inexplicably omitted on Thursday. Vandross also needs to freshen the look of his show. He was joined on about half the songs by three backup singers who carefully synchronized movements and hand gestures seemed robotic and manual. In moments like this, the show seemed hopelessly dated, almost like the parody of an R&B show. There were occasional glimmers of excellence. Vandross' brooding, volcanic interpretation of the bar rock David classic A House Is Not a Home remains a standout, as does a muscular, intense version of Leon Russell's Superstar. Vandross was joined by dancer-singer Gregory Hines on their silky hit duet, There's Nothing Better Than Love. By contrast, Baker did almost everything right in her most important local show to date. She covered a wide range of material and moods, from pop and soul to jazz and blues. She even flirted with rock rhythms on a bold, assertive reading of Michael Jackson's Another Part of Me. The highlight of her show was Watch Your Step, a feisty number from her smash 1986 album, Rapture. The song was staged as a duet with saxophone player Everett Hart. Baker would sing one line and Hart would blow an angry reply. It was like watching a passionate lovers quarrel. The riveting performance set off almost palpable sparks. These dynamic pieces helped to balance the classy ballads that dominated Baker's set. She performed a bluesy version of the Billie Holiday classic God Bless the Child and a sultry reading of her own smash, Sweet Love. Baker's only misstep was leaving the stage near the end of her show to allow the Perry Sisters, an R&B quartet that had backed her on one song, to do a number of their own. Their spot was fine, but broke the momentum of Baker's performance. For this, she left out Rapture. Baker's warm, friendly manner added intimacy to the show. She may have been playing a Carvanius arena, but she made it seem as cozy as a late-night supper for two. The lady is a star. Vandross and Baker never appeared on stage together, which is a shame. A duet or two by these supremely classy performers, both at the peak of their careers, would be an unforgettable moment. The singers, reportedly clashing on this tour, should put aside whatever differences are keeping them apart and think of their fans. The 4-night engagement concludes with shows tonight and Monday. Mr. Grien wasn't done yet. He definitely had the scoop. 8 days later, he wrote this illuminating piece, Banker Vandross, The Building, No Cooing. Luther Vandross and Anita Baker, who played 4 recent sold-out shows at the Sports Arena, both specialize in classy romantic ballads. But you can be sure of one thing, they're not singing these love songs to each other. The two stars, who are nearing the end of a 3-month U.S. tour, have been clashing virtually since the start of the tour on September 28th, according to insiders in both camps. The dispute centers on billing. The tour contracts list Vandross and Baker as co-headliners, but Vandross pointedly referred to Baker as his opening act on stage at the Sports Arena, something he has reportedly done on other tour stops as well. Those are fighting words to Baker and her manager, Sherwin Bash. Nobody would say that Liza Minnelli and Sammy Davis Jr. are the opening acts for Frank Sinatra on their current tour, Bash said. The contracts clearly state that they are co-headliners, co-stars, sharing everything, advertising, billing, facilities, dressing rooms. We agreed that Luther would close every show, and Anita was happy to agree to that because she had never worked big arenas, but in every other sense they are co-headliners. Shep Gordon, who manages Vandross, responded, "I don't consider her an opening act, but she is on before him. You know who goes on first and who goes on second. That's exactly the way the show is. That's what it is." Though the managers, both respected industry veterans, expressed admiration for each other, it's clear that the bickering between the two camps has gotten petty. We've had some silly conversations about "that's my bathroom" and "that's my flashlight," Bash acknowledged. The irony? The tour has been an enormous box office success and has helped both artists break into the top 10 on Billboard's pop album chart for the first time. Baker's "Giving You the Best That I Got" is number 2, and Vandross's "Any Love" is number 12 after reaching number 9 a few weeks ago. Despite the friction, Bash said, "It's a wonderful show. We're playing to wonderful crowds every night. The fact that the two of them are not thrilled with one another is almost beside the point. They've got their new records out there, they've got their audience, so they don't have each other. Big deal." Gordon noted, "I think we've all been involved in tours where people don't get along, and then the tour comes to an end and that's it." But he also struck a positive note. "We're having a wonderful time. It's a fabulous tour, and we're glad to have Anita aboard." Luther's manager did a good job at trying to be diplomatic about the whole thing, but unfortunately, the cat had already been let out of the bag. Okay, so then there was the drama in Boston. Here's the headline. Tiff between touring tandem Baker Vandross heats up. Animosity between singers Anita Baker and Luther Vandross, now touring nationally, prompted separate stages and special backstage curtains at the Boston Garden to totally separate their entourages, officials said Friday. Vandross, the soulful crooner of "Give Me the Reason" and other pop hits, also brought in his own personal toilet seat rather than use the weathered oval fixtures at the 60-year-old home of the Boston Celtics, a Garden official said. We were also informed by the local promoter that Anita Baker guest list tickets were in one section and the Luther Vandross tickets were in another section, the official said. Curtains were reportedly erected so Baker and Vandross could walk around backstage without having to see each other. Baker's new album, "Giving You the Best That I Got," reached number 1 this week on Billboard pop charts, while Vandross's "Any Love" checked in at number 14. On stage, both performers made a point of praising an opening act comedian while carefully avoiding any mention of the other singer. "It's absolutely ridiculous," said Boston radio personality Sonny Joe White, MC for Tuesday night's concert. Careful arrangements have apparently been made throughout the highly successful national tour by Vandross and Baker. We were informed beforehand that they didn't particularly get along with each other, said a spokesman for the Market Square Arena in Indianapolis, which played host to the tour earlier this month. The promoter of the tour, Stage Right Productions of Lutherville, Maryland, declined to comment on reports of animosity, referring calls to the performers' personal managers. The East Coast manager for Live Enterprises, which represents Vandross, said any comment will have to come from the singer's personal manager, who could not be reached. The writer called the beef a tiff. It sounds more like a war. Ironically enough, even the sports writer for the Boston Globe, Will McDonough, gave juicier details of the beef in his column when he compared Luther and Anita's conflict to the player relation issues the Boston Red Sox were having at the time with their players. I have an idea I think could help the Red Sox solve the player relations problem. It is not original, but stems from the sellout performance this week at the Garden featuring Luther Vandross and Anita Baker. Even though they traveled together and are in the midst of one of the most successful tours in the music business, Luther and Anita can't stand one another. In fact, they refuse to look at one another. In order for them to perform at the Garden, the Bull Game had to erect curtains so they could move around the hallways without seeing each other. Anita went on first, and when she was finished, the crowd had to wait 45 minutes while everything that belonged to her was removed, including her stage. Luther refuses to set foot on her stage. Luther went so far as to have a temporary dressing room constructed in the West Lobby and brought in his personal toilet seat because he refused to use the ones there. So yeah, things have gotten really ugly anytime two R&B vocalists have a sports writer mentioning their beef in his column. Drama aside, there are still dates on the tour to play. The show must go on whether the two warring sides want it to or not. Here's David Silverman's headline when the tour carried on begrudgingly to Chicago. Anita Baker fans, it's your turn to brace yourselves on this one. Beauty and the Beast, Vandross outshines Baker in a rising twin bill. It was Beauty and the Beast Tuesday night at the Rosemont Horizon, starring Anita Baker and Luther Vandross. Let's hear it for the Beast. In a hopelessly one-sided evening of hardcore rhythm and soul, Vandross made the multi-platinum Baker seem like an insignificant appetizer, the new kid on the block, a mere flake on his large, glittering tuxedo jacket. Baker opened the double-billed show on shaky legs, with a disappointing, raspy rendition of Same Old Love from a sensational double-platinum debut LP, Rapture. She recovered briefly with the engaging Sweet Love and Been So Long, but soon lapsed into a constant battle with the sound system, her own band eventually asking the percussion to quit altogether. In the Horizon's Turbo Acoustics, she gave an intimate cabaret performance in a convenience arena, and the results were maddening. Shouts from the balcony were joined by fans only a few rows down as the audience continually cried for Baker to sing louder, to enunciate, to please let us hear the words she was singing. But the calls fell on deaf ears. Baker could hear herself, we couldn't. Unaware, she sauntered about the round stage in the middle of the Horizon, engaging in lighthearted exchanges with the closest members of the audience before launching into Mystery, aptly titled because half the lyrics were muffled and unheard. The only bright spot to a 70-minute performance came during a duet with alto saxophonist Everett Harp on Watch Your Step. Harp's brilliance stunned the crowd, or perhaps just awakened it. He took the stage along with Baker for the duet, then broke into a solo, eventually bringing everyone to their feet with his piston-fast hands. He left the stage all too soon. Baker concluded the set with the title track from her recently released second LP, Giving You the Best That I Got, now at the top of the pop chart, but the song fell away like a fading radio station. This wasn't the best she's got, we hope. It was a sad performance for one of the brightest rising stars in music. After a half-hour intermission, Vandross entered the arena like a prize fighter. He emerged from a tunnel under the east bleachers and into the spotlight's glare, strutting his way to the stage with his entourage of shimmering backup singers. Once on stage, he attacked the Horizon's tin can acoustics and brought the building to its knees. No joke, the seats actually shook when Vandross launched into Never Too Much, and they continued to rattle for the rest of his Vegas-style show. Lisa Fischer, Kevin Owens, and Cindy Mizelle played the perfect stage-borne foils for Vandross, providing strong backup vocals while moving through a series of tightly choreographed encounters. Vandross manipulated the crowd with embarrassing ease. Every grunt, groan, and inflection of his voice was enough to bring screams and peals of delight. From old favorites to the newest releases, Vandross was in command of the audience, his voice, and his band. It was an evening of the good and not so good. But there is still time for redemption. Vandross and Baker will be back Thursday night and again on New Year's Eve as they plan to close out the final stop of their Heat Tour on the first strike of the new year. So it seemed like Luther was in a zone, as they say in the sports world, by this point in the tour. Honestly though, Anita was just plain old tired. Consider this write-up by Silverman, published on Christmas Day, 4 days before Anita had that disastrous Chicago show. Tour de force, Anita Baker hits the road and is determined not to miss a beat. First, you bang down doors to get this job, then they bang down yours once they give it to you, Anita said with a lilt of aspiration, returning to the phone after double locking the door to her St. Louis hotel room. Back on the line after the brief interruption, Baker's voice sounds a bit nasal and hoarse due to a head cold and not the phone's crackly connection. She confides that the rigors her current national tour with Luther Vandross have pushed her off stage and into bed for a long-needed day of rest. After a while, you feel like you've been on the road forever, and that's when you fall apart, Baker said. So you try to recharge and get back out. Baker deserves a little more than a recharge. She's been on the run for nearly 3 years. When her 1986 major label debut, Rapture, sold a surprising 5 million copies, it established Baker as an apparent heir to the soft soul throne and pushed her into music's fast lane. She embarked on marathon US and European tours, returning only to re-enter the studio to record her second album. Anita seemed determined to keep going, but eventually she just ran out of gas and maybe patience. Refunding You the Best Way I Got. At the last of 4 garden shows by Anita Baker and Luther Vandross, concert goers were informed a half an hour before showtime that Baker would not be performing, resulting in a mild melee at the box office for refunds. Wow. Of course, I'm only speculating. After all, I definitely was not there, but it seems to me that Miss Baker was just tired of all the traveling and all of the drama. Basically, by the end of December, Anita had checked out. So, Luther and Anita's The Heat Tour shut down at the end of 1988 without much celebratory fanfare. What was the aftermath? Well, even greater success for both artists. First, Luther. Any Love, the song, reached #1 during the tour. Any Love, the album, spent 2 weeks at #1 on the R&B charts in late October of '88. Any Love was Luther's first top 10 album on the pop charts, peaking at #9 during his national tour with Anita. The Any Love album is certified platinum near the end of the tour. After the Heat Tour turned cold, Luther embarked on his own European tour. Meanwhile, Anita got her much needed recharge and then got back to work. Giving You the Best That I Got, the song spent 2 weeks at number 1 on the R&B charts, while the beautiful woman was on tour with Luther. The song peaked at number 3 on the pop charts in mid-December 1988. Anita won a couple of Grammys for her number 1 hit song. The second single from that album, Just Because, will also reach number 1 on the R&B charts in March of '89. Giving You the Best That I Got, the album, spent 8 weeks at number 1 on the R&B charts throughout the second half of the tour. The album peaked at number 1 on the pop charts on Christmas Eve 1988. It spent a total of 4 weeks as the number 1 album in the US. The album was certified 3 times platinum by March of 1989. So there were 2 characterizations written about Luther and Anita during their co-headlining '88 tour that I agree with. First, Luther and Anita, they were the king and queen of contemporary soul. No male artist of his era sang soul so precisely like Luther, and no female vocalist could touch Anita's brand of jazzy soul. Secondly, the issues Luther and Anita had with each other while on tour together was simply a case of clashing egos, but performative theatrics and gamesmanship. In other words, just another day, or in this case, about 3 months, in the fiercely competitive music industry. The beef between the king and queen of contemporary soul is water under the bridge. Anita's a living legend. We need to give her her flowers every day. And Luther is definitely one of the greatest singing angels in heaven. Which one is your favorite? Thanks for joining me all the way to the end of this revealing series. Soulful Charts, we got the receipts. Peace.